I'm going to explain what happened in the UK. I'm going to give you the election results and go into a bit more details about who Keir Starmer is, the new prime minister. Okay, because the media have been reporting this as a landslide victory for Labour, and it's a bit more complicated than that because of how the electoral system works in the UK. But Rishi Sunak is gone. He's out. Game over. He gave his speech. He left, and he's no longer the prime minister. And this is the like I said, we'll get to Keir Starmer in a second, but I just want to give you an idea of what happened because it was a very, very resounding defeat for Conservatives. I mean, I think it's the worst election result in history for the Conservatives. They lost so many seats. Again, just to pull up the graph on the screen, you can see how awful it was for them. Okay. So in Parliament now, Labour have not just a majority, they have an absolute majority, okay? So they can govern without any difficulties, okay? But for Conservatives, they're really screwed. And this is in part due to people leaving, disaffected voters, leaving Tories, leaving Conservatives, and then going to Lib Dems and, of course, to Reform, which is Nigel Farage's party. And I don't think it's an unfair characterization to call them far-right and white nationalists. But again, I'll come back to that afterwards. So just to give you an idea, though, how screwed up this is, look at the two different shades of red. Do you see that the dark red is the percentage in seats, okay? And the light red is the vote share. So they got 34% of the vote, Labour. And even though it's barely a third, right? It's just over 1/3 of the vote. They have over 60% of the seats. So do you see how disproportionate that is? It doesn't make any sense. And the same can be said of all of the other results. I mean, because it's disproportionate in the whole way that it works, right? If you look at Liberal Democrats, for example, they got 71 seats with 12.2% in the share of the vote. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And Reform getting 4 seats on 14.3%. So do you see that this whole system has to be reformed? It has to be more representative. And so now I suppose it's a good thing in the sense that it's causing people now to talk more about reforming the system. Now, speaking of reform, let me be very clear to you that just because Labour won and the Conservatives have been crushed, it doesn't mean that there's going to be a change in policies. Okay, you have to understand that the Labour Party that we're talking about it's basically Tories light. Okay, it's like Democrats and Republicans. There is no difference between Democrats and Republicans except a bit of decorum, right? The rest is splitting hairs at this point. So this is the same phenomenon that you have in England, in the UK. There's no difference between Labour and Conservatives. Please understand that. Anyone who tells you otherwise is talking shit, okay? They're talking shit. So now that we've explained that, I'll also highlight the fact that you have several candidates who won their seats on a Gaza ticket. So all these people that were saying, oh, well, Gaza, it doesn't matter and foreign policy doesn't matter. They're morons. They're complete idiots. So you've had Labour MPs that were dethroned and lost their seats to independent candidates who were running on a Gaza ticket. And of course, that's not the only thing they were running on, but they made Gaza a primary issue. And, what did they expect? I mean, it's so insane to go and support genocide and then think, you're going to get away with it. So at least this is it's a mild form of payback, but it's still payback. Okay. And just to give you an idea of how ridiculous the results are as well, because you have to compare with 2019 and 2017 during the last general elections. Back then, they made a scandal out of Jeremy Corbyn, who is the head of the Labour Party, okay? And they basically removed him as the leader of the Labour Party by accusing him of anti-Semitism because he supported the Palestinians. So you see that issue has actually never gone away, nor should it. But they also use the election results. And again, keep in mind, they used this anti-Semitism thing to make sure that no one voted for Labour. So they were smearing him constantly in the media. And then once the election results came out, they used those results to delegitimize him and remove him as the to force him into resignation as the Labour leader. Now, the funny thing is, he got more votes in 2017 and in 2019 than Keir Starmer did. Now, but the media are not calling for Keir Starmer to leave or calling him illegitimate or making a big fuss about the fact that he has less votes than Jeremy Corbyn. You have some media talking about what I explained just a few minutes ago about how disproportionate the amount of actual votes for Labour are compared to the number of seats. Okay, they are discussing some of that, but they're not talking about the fact that in for example 2017. Okay, so it's two things, right? Keep in mind, it's two things. Labour, the whole party received less votes this time round, and Keir Starmer himself in his own constituency received less votes than under Corbyn. So what does this tell you? It tells you two things: that the Labour Party was more successful in terms of actual people going to the polling station and voting for them under Jeremy Corbyn. Okay. Now, of course, people will say, well, no, who cares? Because the point is actually getting an absolute majority. Fine, but I'm talking about direct democracy, people actually going to the poll and voting for you. The number of votes was higher under Jeremy Corbyn. And so that's number one. And the second thing, it shows you how biased the media are, because they call that a disaster when that happened with Jeremy Corbyn. They say, oh my God, he has to resign. This is a catastrophe. No one wants Labour, which is a lie, because you had a ballooning membership in the Labour Party. You had tons of young people who joined and then who left once they dethroned Jeremy Corbyn and replaced him with Keir Starmer. Okay, so Keir Starmer himself. Now let's move on to Keir Starmer, actually. But I think I'll just read to you the number of votes, if you'll allow me, just to show you how crazy it is, the difference. So Keir Starmer himself in his own constituency, this is in Holborn and St Pancras. In 2017, he got 41,300 votes. Okay, I'll just round it down to the first two figures. So he got 41,000 votes in 2017. In 2019, he got 36,000 votes. Yesterday, he got 18,000. Okay, so this is the Prime Minister in his own constituency. He had 41,000 votes in 2017. 36,000 votes in 2019, 18,000 votes. So basically, the amount of people that voted for him in his own constituency cut by half. And that's under his own leadership. He is the head of the party. Like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So he barely scraped by, right? You could say it's hilarious. It really is. It really is. And that's in his own constituency. All right. So he fared better under Jeremy Corbyn. Do you know why? Because when Jeremy Corbyn was the head of the Labour Party, he was his most ardent supporter, like in public, and then he stabbed him in the back and in the front. And I'll come back to that in just a second. I just want to again give you the figures for the whole Labour Party. Okay, so so here are the number of votes in 2017: 12.8 million votes. Okay. Let me put it up on the screen. You can see the success of Jeremy Corbyn compared to Ed Miliband, who was his predecessor, and then Starmer, who was his successor. It's unbelievable. It really is. Do you see that? So 9 million votes under Ed Miliband in 2015. Then Jeremy Corbyn comes in. You have all these young people joining the party. The membership is exploding. 12 million votes. Then 10 million votes. This is after the smear campaign. And then under Keir Starmer, less votes. But the media don't say anything about that. So let me introduce you to the new Prime Minister, okay? Let me show you what kind of a guy he is, right? So this is Keir Starmer before. This is in 2019. This is before he stabs Jeremy Corbyn in the back.
I'm 100% behind Jeremy Corbyn.
You are now.
I am working with Jeremy Corbyn to try to win the next general election.
You're loyal to Jeremy Corbyn, and you've spoken in his defence just now. But Louise Ellman says that he is a danger not just to the Labour Party, but to the entire British Jewish community.
I don't accept that. I don't accept that. And don't trash the last 4 years, because what Jeremy Corbyn brought to this party, he made us an anti-austerity party that stood against cuts. I'm 100% behind.
Right, so you see how supportive he is, yeah? You see how supportive he is. And then what happened? So after they forced Jeremy Corbyn to resign because of the so-called disaster of 2019, he takes over the party and he purges the entire left. Okay, so George Galloway, Chris Williamson, and then you have even some Jewish MPs who start becoming attacked. Like, it's unbelievable, right? It's like even if you're Jewish, they're going to say you're anti-Semitic. And then, of course, Corbyn himself, right? They put him through a million scandals. They took, you know, so he ran as an independent, by the way, this time, right? But they took away the whip from him, so effectively suspended him from the party and humiliated him, really, like, dragged his name through the mud. It's really unbelievable. And you have that residual smear campaign still visible today, right? It's still going on today. I mean, ongoing today. I mean, you can see television presenters. There's one of them who was so on Channel 4, right? It wasn't her who was interviewing Corbyn, but one of her co-hosts, and you can see the look of disgust on her face, because the establishment hate him so much because he was actually a leftist leader. Like, when he took charge of Labour, he embodied the name of the party, Labour, like actually for workers, and they hated that. They hated that, so they had to get rid of him. And they did all sorts of things. They had Keir Starmer turn on him, the whole front bench. They called him anti-Semitic. The security services came out before the election. like this is amazing, right? Like, you have MI5 and MI6 and GCHQ giving their opinion on Jeremy Corbyn and saying that, well, he's a threat to the security of the country. And you had the SAS who are using photos of him so the SAS are the special forces, these special air service. They were using photos of Jeremy Corbyn for target practice, and that was leaked to the press to, like, you know, further to create further resentment against him. It's just really disgusting, right? But now Keir Starmer, having turned on him, he's climbed to the top, right? He's climbed up the ladder like a slithering nasty snake. I mean, it's so choreographed. It's so choreographed. And I want to show you who Keir Starmer is, because you guys don't understand how nasty this guy is. So before he became the prime minister, he used to be the head so he used to head the Crown Prosecution Service. He was the director of public prosecutions as a lawyer. Do you know what he did? Do you remember the pedophile Jimmy Saville, the BBC presenter? Like, oh, nobody knew he was a pedophile until he died, and then suddenly the scandal comes out. So apparently there was an investigation open about Jimmy Saville, and they closed it in the CPS, in the Crown Prosecution Service. And then this is under Keir Starmer when he was the chief, and he says he didn't know about it. How do you not know about that? How do you not know about this case being closed? I don't believe that for 1 second. This guy's a liar. Another thing, he went to the United States several times, presumably to talk about Julian Assange with the Americans. This is when Julian Assange was still in the embassy, okay? And again, under his Crown Prosecution Service, the lawyers were emailing Sweden and telling them not to come to Britain to speak with Julian Assange, because there were no charges against him, but they wanted to question him, okay? And they wanted to extradite him to question him. I've never heard of that in my life. That's you extradite someone for questioning. There are no charges and there's no case, but so it's ridiculous. And he was saying, well, if you send a prosecutor to London, I can speak with them. If you want to do it over video, I can do that as well. So he wanted to cooperate with them. But the British government, the CPS under Keir Starmer, were telling Sweden not to do that under any circumstances because they wanted to get him to Sweden and then extradite him to America. That was the whole plan. Okay? So Keir Starmer went to the United States and then all of the records of his trips were destroyed. Let me repeat that. He went to the United States and all of the records of his trips were destroyed. They just destroyed them. Stefania Maurizio was interviewing her yesterday. She's done excellent work on this. Look what she posted today, for example. She said Keir Starmer was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service when the CPS took crucial decisions on Julian Assange, which contributed to creating the quagmire which kept Assange in London since 2010. 9 years of Freedom of Information Act trench warfare, 3 appeals to UK tribunals, 3 appeals to Swedish courts, no truth. This is what the Crown Prosecution Service told Sweden. They said, my earlier advice remains that in my view, it would not be prudent for the Swedish authorities to try to interview Assange in the UK. So they did this on purpose so that he would stay inside the embassy and that they could figure out a way to then screw him over, which they eventually did. So this is the kind of person that Keir Starmer is. And now, of course, if you try and find out if he directed this, the records don't exist because they've been destroyed. And then, he'll just say, well, I didn't know, which is ridiculous because you're the head of the unit. You're the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. You're the top prosecutor. You have to take responsibility. So you can't say you didn't know. You're in charge of all of these cases, all of them. So this is the kind of person he is. And there's another thing also, for example, they were looking into torture allegations with MI5 and MI6, and he let them off the hook. So he closed these investigations into rendition and torture by MI5 and MI6. And then the year afterwards, he goes for drinks with the chief of MI5. He goes for drinks with the chief of MI5. So do you see the kind of person that we're talking about? This guy has done all sorts of things for the establishment, all sorts of things, fake anti-Semitism campaign against Jeremy Corbyn, stabbing him in the back in public, and then, well, that doesn't make sense, stabbing him. They stabbed him in the front. And then, hunting journalists like Julian Assange, protecting pedophiles who are at the top of the media establishment and the British political establishment, protecting the security services from investigations into torture. Like, you name it, he's done it. He is truly the scum of the earth. When we talk about the swamp in politics, Keir Starmer is the swamp. So no wonder he becomes the prime minister. No wonder. This is the reward for being a swamp creature. Do you understand? He's an absolute scumbag, an absolute piece of work. The Israeli president tweeted this out. He said, I send my warmest congratulations to Keir Starmer as he prepares to enter Downing Street as Prime Minister. I look forward to working together with him and his new government to bring our hostages home, to build a better future for the region, and to deepen the close friendship between Israel and the United Kingdom. What friendship is that? Bombing the King David Hotel? I also express my deepest appreciation and gratitude to outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for his leadership and for standing with the Israeli people, especially during the most difficult period. So this tweet says a lot about the current state of British politics. So, there's no difference in policy between the two. Thank you, Conservatives, for helping us with our extermination in Gaza. Oh, and thank you, Labour, for coming in and helping us with the extermination in Gaza. Do you understand? So this tweet reveals a lot. I mean, it doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know, but it is further confirmation. And I'll remind you, Keir Starmer said a few months ago, when he was asked directly, do you think it's okay? Do you think Israel can withhold water and food, basically starve? Can Israel starve Palestinians in Gaza? And he says, yeah. He says yes. Okay. I mean, I can get the clip for you if you give me just a moment. That's why we've given him the nickname. Instead of Sir Keir Starmer, it's Sir Kid Starver. Okay. So let me show you the clip. I'm sure some of you have seen it, but I'm going to show it again anyway.
I'm very clear. Israel.
Okay, here it is.
Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation. Obviously, everything should be done within international law, but I don't want to step away from the sort of core principles that Israel has a right to defend herself and Hamas bears responsibility for these terrorist acts. And I would call on all responsible states, particularly Middle East responsible states, to call this out for what it is, and to stand with the world in condemning, utterly condemning, these actions by Hamas. I'm very clear.
What's funny about this is that he is a lawyer, and not just a lawyer, a barrister. He was the head, as I said before, the director of public prosecutions of the United Kingdom. And he specialized in humanitarian law. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's talking about. You don't have to be a lawyer to recognize that starving civilians is wrong and withholding water is wrong. And that it's a war crime. It is a war crime, it's unequivocally a war crime. But he is legally qualified to make that assertion. And then he goes ahead and says, yeah, it has the right. Well, great. I can't wait for you to see you in The Hague, because that's where you're going, right? So we have another war criminal prime minister, and it's so fitting that he's the first one to be elected since Tony Blair. They're such a good pair together, aren't they? Two Labour war criminal prime ministers. So, you know, the Conservatives in the last weeks, they submitted clarification. They asked for clarification from the ICC about, from the ICJ and the ICC for about whether, you know, it has jurisdiction over Palestine, and they do. We know this. I reported on this 2-3 years ago when they already established that under Fatou Bensouda, right? So she was the old chief prosecutor. So they use this as a delay tactic to avoid issuing arrest warrants. And that takes me to another thing. Do you know what Keir Starmer did? He blocked arrest warrants, not for Netanyahu, but for a previous Israeli politician, the foreign minister, right? So when there was a trip, they were planning to come to the UK, right? He helped block their arrest warrants so that, you know, they wouldn't be arrested back then. I mean, real absolute scumbag, you know? So this is with Tzipi Livni, right? Livni. So she was the Israeli foreign minister, and this is when they were bombing Gaza in 2008, right? But don't forget, it started on October 7. So Israel was bombing Gaza in 2008, and they were going to try and arrest Livni, not in the UK, right? Like in British jurisdiction, when she would arrive in this visit in 2011, and he blocked it. And they're also censoring emails about that, right? So the bombing happened in 2008, and the trip was planned for 2011, and they warned the Israelis and made sure that nothing happened. So he has protected the Israelis over and over again. Another interesting fact that you might not know: his wife is Jewish. Now, obviously, being Jewish doesn't make you an Israeli. I know the Israelis want you to think that, but in this case, absolutely, his wife is like a 100% Zionist, and he himself has said. He calls himself an unequivocal Zionist. Okay? Those are the exact words that he used. Unequivocal Zionist. Right? So, this is the type of person that we're dealing with. A true absolute swamp creature. He has done it all. You name it, he's done it. Some other funny things, you know, he's named David Lammy as the foreign secretary. So now David Lammy's coming in to take over from David Cameron, who, again, David Cameron came back into politics as foreign minister, and he wasn't elected as an MP, which you can't do that. You have to be elected as an MP, and you have to have a mandate from the public before you can be given a cabinet position. But in any case, he's gone now. Good riddance. And now we have David Lammy, who is basically a chubbier black version of David Cameron. Isn't that great? we have the same scum war criminals, but wearing different clothes, and that's the message that I wish to impress upon you, is that the government has simply changed its clothes. It's not a new government. It's the same government with different clothes, with different faces, right? Please understand that. That's very important. Funny thing is Liz Truss, who had the shortest premiership in Britain's history. What was it again? 50 days? She's become the first former prime minister in 90 years to lose their seat at a general election, and she lost by 630 votes. Okay. The media, so this is a headline from the Telegraph. They were happy because George Galloway unfortunately lost his seat, and this is the headline that they ran. They said, "Goodbye, Galloway. This was a triumph for Israel." Can you believe that? Can you believe that they actually ran this headline? I mean, it's they can't hide, you know, they can't hide their glee. They can't hide their glee. Remember that George Galloway has been a parliamentarian, elected to parliament 7 times. Okay, and this count in Rochdale, he lost by barely 1,000. What is it? 1,200 votes. Let me see. 13,000 versus 11,500. Okay, so roughly 1,500 votes. Yeah. So I mean, the other guy scraped, barely by the skin of his teeth got elected. So it doesn't say anything about George Galloway. On the contrary, I'll just read to you what Elijah Magnet wrote. He had said that George's loss of his MP seat does not diminish the fact that he is globally acknowledged as a true representative of the people worldwide. And I couldn't agree more with what Elijah's written there. Absolutely. And that's why the Israelis in the media are so happy. And did you see the subheading underneath? It says, "Britain has breathed a sigh of relief." Well, which one is it? Is it a victory for Israel or a victory for Britain? Why don't you make your mind up? It's unbelievable how some people they seem to be more interested in what's good for Israel than what's good for their own countries. Weird, isn't that weird? How odd. You've got several candidates who could have gone and won it had the Green Party, for example, not come in and split the votes. Okay, so just to give you an example, Liane Mohammed, she lost in Ilford North by 528 votes. That's nothing. James, 1,500 votes. Look, 600 votes, 693 votes, 1,600. I mean, these are all independent or Workers' Party candidates, right? They could have done it. They could have made it through and made it past the finish line, were it not for people coming in and splitting the vote. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to Craig Murray, for example, in Blackburn, I mean, the independent who joined the race last month when Craig was already in it for months before him, also got by the skin of his teeth, right? That could have very easily gone wrong, and the seat would have gone to Labour, and then they would have blamed Craig, when in fact Craig was the first one to announce a candidacy in that constituency as an independent and or Workers' Party. He was Workers' Party, of course, but basically someone who's not establishment. He was the first one to do it. And then, other people come in and they split the vote. And this is stupid. This is dumb. It's counterproductive. It's dangerous. And it leads to things like this. And honestly, the guy who won it in Blackburn is not qualified as Craig is. He's just not. I don't know what he's going to go and do there, but he's not going to have a mandate as prosperous or as clinical as Craig's would have been. It's a shame. It's a shame. So, in any case, the lesson here about this general election, I think it was summed up quite well by Glenn Greenwald. He said that the red line here is Labour, the collapsed blue line are Conservatives, grey line non-voters. Does anyone see a surge for Labour in the UK? The only thing that has surged, as is happening in so many democratic countries, is hatred for establishment factions. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at that. This is from the 1970s to 2024. And you can see the vote share going down. for all of these parties, right? And the only thing that's actually going up, the only trend that is really skyrocketing is rejection of the establishment. This is exactly what is happening. And the problem now is that instead of Tories, you have Tories light, and they're going to continue all the same crap. They're going to keep supporting Israel. They're going to keep employing and implementing United States foreign policy instead of having a sovereign, independent British foreign policy. They're going to keep doing what Washington says. They're going to keep on doing what NATO wants. They're going to keep the war in Ukraine going. They're going to keep provoking World War III with Russia and China. And they're going to continue screwing over working class people. And you're going to, because you have so many disaffected voters, I don't know why this is the trend in Europe, because it stinks. But many of them seem to go to the far right, which, what has that ever done for them? I mean, what has that ever done for them? What good has that ever done? But that's what's going to happen the next general election, I fear, is that you're going to have a lot of disaffected voters who end up going to far right parties. And you're seeing that already everywhere. I mean, even Labour, if we talk about Labour in the UK, it is a far right party, actually. And I said that yesterday in my video. So, if you look at the policies and the program that Keir Starmer was putting forward, he wasn't even trying to appeal to people on the left. He was simply trying to appeal to conservative voters and people to the right. So, that's where we are right now. It's really just a far right Overton window. So there you go. There you go. That is the result. We have a scumbag war criminal as prime minister, nothing new. We have working class people who've been screwed, nothing new. And we have militarism and the security services and all of these lovely, genocidal policies at the heart of the government's domestic and foreign policy. Really great, wonderful. It's so good. It's so good. Really, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you besides it. This is why it's important to work on coalitions. So next time we have less of a split vote in certain constituencies, right? Obviously, you can't have coalitions with Labour when Labour have a policy of genocide against Palestinians. You have to strike a coalition with independents. And I know the Workers' Party did that in certain constituencies. They withdrew candidates on purpose so that independent candidates who had a stronger chance could succeed. So it's a very selfless thing to do. But it's the key to success if you want the left to actually win. So we need to have more of that next time. And I suspect that the Workers' Party might fare a bit better because keep in mind it's a new party. And nevertheless, George Galloway got elected first time around in Rochdale. And in addition to that, they got 200,000 votes. And that's despite the media blackout, right? So that's another scandalous thing, is that you have George Galloway, who's a sitting member of parliament, an excellent speaker, master orator, and they don't invite him to any of the television debates. He wasn't invited to any of the debates. They do that on purpose so that you don't know or you don't learn of the grassroots alternative left that actually exists, and instead you only see this much, right? You have this Overton window of two far right parties, and one of them is masquerading as left, but it's not left party. Labour is only workers or pro-worker in name, but in policy it's anti-worker. And so they do this on purpose. They had a media blackout against the Workers' Party and George Galloway from the moment that he won his seat in Rochdale. And do you remember Rishi Sunak came out in front of number 10 Downing Street and he gave a speech, and he didn't even name George Galloway, but we all knew who he was talking about, right? Because that was the only seat that had been won. And he started warning about the rise in Islamistic, just absolute nonsense, because they don't want people running on Gaza and against militarism. So from that moment on, the media and the political establishment in Britain blackballed and blacklisted all of the Workers' Party candidates and George Galloway himself. And they invited people like Nigel Farage, who'd never had a mandate in Parliament, never been elected to the House of Commons, but didn't invite George Galloway, who was in Parliament as the head of the Workers' Party. What do you say? What do you say to that? I say that's very low. I say that's crooked. I say that's rotten. And they did it on purpose, because if you don't know about the party, even if they speak negatively, right? At least you know of the party, and you if you're curious, you'll go and you'll read the manifesto and you'll understand who's who, and you can make an informed decision, maybe, right? It's better than not knowing. But they did that on purpose, and so that's the state of things right now. That's the state of affairs. We have a very, very long road ahead. I mean, I didn't expect anything less. Don't get me wrong. I didn't expect a miracle. We're still dealing with the same enemies. We still have all of these interests that the government is beholden to. So, I'm not surprised. And the struggle continues. The struggle continues. Again, YouTube demonetized my channel because I'm not allowed to say naughty things about Israel. Telling the truth is forbidden. So if you are able to donate a few dollars on PayPal or on a monthly basis on Patreon, please consider doing it, because it would really help me continue my journalism and support independent media. So I'd be very grateful. And the links are in the description and also in the chat. Thank you guys very much again for all your donations and all your kind comments. I appreciate it very much.